Okay, the hour is upon us, so we will begin the meeting. This is the regular meeting of the Clearlake City Council and Redevelopment Successor Agency held at Clearlake City Hall Council Chambers on Olympic Avenue in Clearlake, California. Madam Clerk, if you do a roll call.
Councilmember Slutin.
Present.
Councilmember Overton.
Here.
Councilmember Harris.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kramer.
Here.
Mayor Bennett.
Here. Lieutenant Hobbs, if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would remain standing for a second, Pastor Todd Hinkle will do the invocation.
Thank you for all of you being here tonight. Father, we just ask that you would grant the council wisdom tonight and grant us all wisdom, Lord, that we would think before we speak and we would do that which edifies everyone in the room. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, we have next on is the adoption of the agenda. Is there any modifications to the agenda?
No modifications.
Okay. Then we accept it as presented. Is there any announcements of actions from closed sessions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have a report regarding the third item, which is the Borland claim. So there was a motion made by, Vice Mayor Harris to deny the claim filed by Mr. Tyler Borland related to an automobile accident. It was seconded by Vice Mayor Kramer. Actually, it was Councilmember Harris by Vice Mayor Harris, and the votes were 4-0 with in the ayes for Mayor Bennett voting that way, Vice Mayor Kramer, and then Councilmembers Slotin and Harris, and absent was Councilmember Overton. That's my report.
Thank you very much. We have some presentation. The first is the swearing in. I assume Chief White will handle this.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, and members of the public. We're going to have to make one change because the CSO is actually on the way back from the jail. He had to drop somebody off, so we'll try to insert him later. But I'd ask soon-to-be Captain Selly to step forward, please. Tim Selly started with the Clearlake Police Department as an explorer when he joined the department at the young age of 14. He received several letters of commendation during his time as an explorer with the police department. He attended and graduated from Lower Lake High School, where he excelled as an athlete in football, earning recognition as an all-league, all-county, and all-Redwood Empire offensive lineman and linebacker. After he graduated, Tim joined the United States Army National Guard as a military policeman. He attended and graduated from San Joaquin Delta College in 1994, had a short stint at the Waterford Police Department as a Level 1 Reserve, and then he came back home to Clearlake in August of 1995 when he was hired as a Community Service Officer and Reserve Officer for the City of Clearlake. He was sworn in as a full-time officer in 1999, after which time he worked in many different assignments in the department, including Field Training Officer, Detective, Narcotics Agent with the B&E Task Force, Crime Suppression, Patrol Sergeant, Administrative Sergeant, Lieutenant, and most recently as Interim Police Chief. In addition to his work with the department, he spends his off time coaching football at both Lower Lake High School and with the Youth League. He also coaches wrestling, enjoys outdoor activities such as fishing, camping, boating, ranching, and farming. And by farming, I actually mean true farming. He just got some cows and such. So I didn't actually know what to believe when he told me about that he used to be a farmer, and then I saw that. I said, okay, I'll give you that. Tim is also active in the community as a Lakeshore Lions community member. He grew up in the community where he continues to live with his wife and family. He's been married to his wife, Amanda, for 21 years, and they share 3 children, Kristen, age 20, JC, age 15, and Nick, age 12. I would just add to this bio that I think that Tim is an example of somebody who has dedicated their professional life to a particular agency. Here at the Clearlake Police Department, we have a saying in law enforcement that certain people bleed the blue of their agency, and I would say in this case that he definitely bleeds Clearlake blood. I would also say that in my time of being chief here, that Tim has been absolutely phenomenal in supporting the transition that occurred, and also too with being open about the changes that needed to occur in the department, where we had gone from, and where we were headed to. So it gives me great pleasure today to, I would say finalize, but nothing's ever final because we always look at things to reorganize. But our reorganization process, one of the important parts was adding back in the position of captain. So I'm pleased to swear in Tim Sully tonight as police captain. So first I'll have his wife pin the badge. All right.
It's easier every time.
Professional. So he should have this memorized. So we'll see how this goes. All right. Go ahead and raise your right hand. I. Say your name. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend. The Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of California. Against all enemies. Foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance. To the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the State of California. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation. Or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Upon which I'm about to enter. I don't know if you want to say a few words, but I did want to point out the knack on his head there. We had a pursuit earlier, in which case, unfortunately, one of our officers was injured and hospitalized, but now Captain Sully, it's not below him to go out and assist the officers. In fact, he's actually been doing the final field training for several officers, but he went out and assisted and helped capture the suspect. Unfortunately, he got a knack, but he says that scars are cool, so. I'll turn it over to you if you want to say anything.
I just want to say thank you, Chief, for the faith and the trust in me. Thank you to the council for your guidance while I was interim chief. Thank you to the police department for believing in me and following my leadership. I know it's not always easy, but I appreciate all your help. And we're a family at the Clearlake Police Department. We're going to continue to move forward, onward and upward. Thank you.
Okay, we have some presentations, so I'll be stepping down. We have somebody for the proclamation about National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week.
Yes, Mayor.
Oh boy.
We have dispatcher Chelsea Banks to accept this on behalf of the department.
I'm not going to repeat myself, which I have, well, I am, many times. To the importance of our telecommunicators, known to us as our dispatchers. They are not only oftentimes the first contact that people have to call or when they come into the station, because they won't have the front window, And I don't think the chief will get to that left, but they're still there. 911 calls or regular calls for service, they are literally.
Microphone, please.
Bitch. They are literally the life of the officers that are out there on the street handling calls, such as the one the chief referred to, where a lieutenant and a captain had to, administrators go out there and do the job. They have saved my life and my career on numerous occasions, literally. I can't say enough about our dispatchers, and I think any officer worth his or her salt will agree. So this proclamation is about the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 14th through 20th, 2019. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time, they require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and the preservation of property, and whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Clearlake Police Department Emergency Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and foremost critical contact our citizens have with emergencies, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety, and whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Clearlake Police Department have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, treatment of patients, and whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Therefore, it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Clearlake declares the week of April 14th through 20th, 2019 to be National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in the City of Clearlake in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city and citizens safe. Dated this 11th day of April 2019, signed by me. Anything to say, Chief?
What's that?
Anything to add to that?
Covered it well.
Okay, thank you. Hold on a minute. Hold on. I got to get. And Chelsea's one of our favorites. She's a local, or she used to work at Main Street, and her mother still works there. And I think she just hung around to give me a few more gray hairs. So, next up, Child Abuse Prevention Month. Do we have somebody for that? Hi, ladies. And gentlemen, in Littlewood. We got everybody? This is Child Abuse Prevention Month, April of 2019. Those of us in here, Captain Selly, Lieutenant Hobbs, and other officers, dispatchers, and citizens have seen the terrible, terrible results of child abuse that can occur from anywhere from a child being days old up to their teenage years. And it's just the work that goes into prevention, counseling, and care for these victims, and maybe even to change the actions of a parent or guardian of a child is paramount within our society. So whereas approximately 3 million children are reportedly abused and neglected in the United States each year, and whereas child abuse prevention is a community problem, all citizens should become more aware of the effects of child abuse and its prevention, and finding solutions depends on the involvement of the people throughout the community. And whereas effective child abuse prevention programs succeed because of partnerships created among social service agencies, schools, religious and civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and business community, and supporting parents in raising their children in a safe and nurturing environment. And whereas new local initiatives to prevent child abuse include building resilience, a countywide collaboration, adverse childhood experiences, nurturing family program, differential response, RCS wraparound services, infant massage, motherwise, and the protective factors. And whereas events take place in the community to promote awareness as follows: child abuse posters distributed in local business throughout the county for the month of April 13th, 2019, Children Advocacy Walk and Festival, a mini festival on the 14th at Senior Center in Clearlake Oaks. Child abuse prevention placemats dispersed this month of April at Lakeport Taco Bell, Children's Memorial Flag Ceremony, and now therefore the City of Clearlake does hereby proclaim April 2019 as Child Abuse Prevention Month, and calls upon its citizens, community agencies, religious organizations, medical facilities, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to prevent child abuse, thereby strengthening the community in which we live. Dated this 11th day of April 2019, signed by myself as mayor. And a few words.
Thank you so much. I'm Carla Ritz. I'm the Executive Director for First Five. And on behalf of the Lake County Children's Council, I'd just like to remind everyone that a single incident of child abuse impacts not only the child, but the family, our community, and society at large. Child abuse is a core underlying factor to many of the ongoing struggles of this community. High rates of school dropout, incarceration, homelessness, and chronic health issues. In 2018, there were 136 verified cases of child abuse in Lake County.
Thank you.
During the month of April, you're going to notice pinwheel gardens springing up all around the area in honor of National Child Abuse Prevention Month. The pinwheel is a symbol of carefree, whimsical ways of our children, and they represent the type of childhood that we want for all of Lake County's kids. In addition to pinwheel gardens to raise awareness, you've heard about all of the different activities that will be happening in the next few weeks. Closing ceremonies for the month will be held on April 26th, and we invite you all to attend. A fundamental question comes up as we consider this sobering topic. How much child abuse do we consider acceptable in our community? The answer to that question has drawn a lot of us together in community collaboration to build momentum around doing something beyond a once-a-year resolution and a month of planned activities to raise awareness. First, we've created a subcommittee of the Lake County Children's Council called the Trauma-Informed Guide Team, or Building Resilient Lake County. And we're working together to come up with solutions and prevention strategies to expose the community to the impacts of trauma and how to build resilience. Secondly, we've partnered with Strategies 2.0, which is a branch of the Office of Child Abuse Prevention, and Lake County has been declared one of their immersion sites this year. Only our county and one other have had this opportunity where the full measure of their trainings are being brought to our county in the next year. All of our service providers are being trained in trauma-informed care, cultural proficiency, strengthening families' protective factors, and the combined effects of adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments to a wide cross-section. We're now also in the process, and this is what I'm most excited to share with you, We're in the process of developing a State of the Children report for Lake County, along with a call to action. To create this report, we're gathering data on all aspects of life for children here in the community to create a comprehensive snapshot of the needs of our kids and the barriers to thriving that they face, large and small. And we're working on solutions together. The State of the Children project includes leaders from Lake County Departments of Public Health, Behavioral Health, Social Services, Child Welfare Services, and Probation, along with Lake County Office of Education, Lakeview Health Clinic, Adventist Health Clearlake, Redwood Community Services, North Coast Opportunities, Lake Family Resource Center, Motherwise, Easter Seals Bay Area, Lake County Tribal Health, First Five, Court-Appointed Special Advocates of Lake and Mendocino. We're all behind this. We look forward to sharing with you this report and our call to action later this year to inspire each of you to do your part to prevent and protect the carefree, healthy childhood of Lake County's children. How much child abuse do we consider acceptable in our community? We are here together today to say none, and we thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, we have designating the month of April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. While they're passing those out, I have to go say hi to a fellow veteran. Either he doesn't get out that much, or I've been, been around that much. That's Captain Sully's father, a Vietnam veteran. Designating the month of April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I don't usually talk this month, so let's hope my voice keeps up. My wife does most of the talking. Whereas in 2018, Lake County agencies responded to the needs of at least 289 sexual assault victims and their significant others and or family members. And whereas no one person, organization, or community can eliminate sexual assault on their own, and the partnership between public and private Lake County agencies is invaluable. And whereas child sexual abuse prevention must be a priority to confront the reality that 1 in 6 boys and 1 in 4 girls will experience a sexual assault before the age of 18. And whereas the Lake County Family Resource Center has been instrumental in leading the way in the County of Lake in addressing sexual assault by providing 24-hour hotline services, continuing to support and advocacy and accompaniment to the victim survivors and their significant others. And whereas ending sexual assault in Lake County must include active public and private efforts to speak out against sexual violence, and it is time for all of us to start conversations, take appropriate action, and support one another to create a safer environment for all residences. And whereas staff and volunteers at Lake County Family Resource Center Rape Crisis Center work year-round to encourage every person to speak out against sexual violence and to support survivors by providing prevention, education, and survivor empowerment information. And whereas the Lake Family Resource Center and the District Attorney's Office, Victim Witness Division, local law enforcement agencies, hospitals, and schools have set an important example on how forging collaborative relationships improves the quality of service for those impacted by sexual violence. And now therefore be it proclaimed that the mayor of the city of Clearlake does hereby designate the month of April 2019 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month in Lake County. April 2nd as the Sexual Assault Awareness Day of Action in Lake County, and urges all local governments, schools, businesses, community members to participate in the sponsored events this month to increase awareness and public support for creating communities free from violence and exploitation. Dated this 11th day of April 2019, signed by myself. I want to point out that my last 3 years with the city on the police department was as detective sergeant. And I can't count how many times in the middle of the night, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 2, 3 o'clock, we would be making calls to the Family Resource Center to have an advocate come down and sit with the victim and begin the counseling and referrals to them. They would ride with them either to Napa if we had to go there for examinations. The DA's office, as far as their Victim Witness Division, utilizing their facilities for important forensic interviews and everything. This is a crime that goes on that affects our youth. This is a very low number, 289. Very low. That's all that's reported. It's an epidemic out there, and each and every one of us need to fight against it. These folks are angels to our people that need them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to say something?
I want to talk a little bit. Thank you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Rape Crisis Center, and you mentioned that 289 is a very low number, and that really is, and we're talking about reported sexual assaults. And we want to say like only half of people report a sexual assault. So that number is a lot higher for Lake County. That's a huge number for Lake County if you think about it. And so one of the things I wanted to talk about is we responded to, between all of the different agencies, all the different police departments, Clearlake Police Department, Lakeport Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, CHP, Victim Witness, they all responded to 289 calls of sexual assault. Of those 289, the Rape Crisis Center served 77 of those survivors. Of those 77 survivors, 22 of them were between the ages of 2 and 18. That's a shocking number. Victim Witness responded to 81 child sexual assaults last year. So of the 289 that were reported, over 100 of them were our children in Lake County. Like in the proclamation, it says 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted before the age of 18. Those are awful numbers. What I'm asking of our community is if you see something, say something. Together we can end sexual violence. And I want to thank, behalf of Lake Family Resource Center, I'd like to thank Clearlake Police Department and the Clearlake City Council for proclamating the April Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I almost got it all done without stuttering. Almost. Oh, and I'd like Alicia to talk a little bit about one of our events, Denim Day, which is April 24th this month.
Come on up.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming out. So Lake Family Resource Center would like to ask the community to stand with us on breaking the silence on sexual violence by breaking the dress code. So on April 24th, which is the last Wednesday in April, we ask everybody to break the dress code by wearing jeans to work. This is known as National Denim Day. Why denim? Good question, Gina. Denim Day started back in 1998. There was a young lady that was 18 years old and taking her first driving lesson in Italy. her 45-year-old married driving instructor picked her up, drove her out to a very secluded area, and wrestled her out of the car and violently raped her. She went home. He threatened her with death if she told. She went home and told her parents. He was prosecuted and found guilty and put away. Great end to a horrible story, but he appealed that conviction. And the Supreme Court judge in Italy said, quote, because her jeans were very, very tight, it couldn't have been rape, it was consensual, because she had to help take those jeans off. This outraged the Italian parliament, and the women showed up wearing jeans with signs saying, my jeans are not an excuse to rape. This spread throughout the world, and it became an international symbol of speaking out against sexual assault and rape. So please join us. Thank you.
I'd like to go ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You know, in my younger days as a newer police officer back in the 60s, it was oftentimes the thinking of police and prosecutors. I was raised different, but police and prosecutors and public at large that, well, the way a woman dresses or the way she acts or a boy is acting by sitting on somebody's lap or whatever, they're inviting assault or molestation. Luckily, that's coming to an end, but not fast enough. But that was the norm back in the 60s. That was the thinking of way too many people in society. Our last one, my voice will hold out. 2020 census kickoff. Do we have anybody here for that?
No, just City Clerk Swanson.
Okay. This is for April 2019. Whereas the U.S. Census Bureau is required by Article 1, Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution to conduct an accurate count of population every 10 years. Whereas the next enumeration will be April 1st, 2020, and will be the first to rely heavily upon online responses. And whereas a primary and perpetual challenge facing the U.S. Census Bureau is the undercount of certain population groups, and whereas that challenge is amplified in California, given the size of the state and the diversity of communities, and whereas California has a large percentage of individuals that are considered traditionally hard to count, and whereas these diverse communities and demographic populations are at risk of being missed in the 2020 census, and whereas California receives nearly $77 billion, that's with a B, dollars in federal funding that relies in part on census data, and whereas a complete and accurate count of California's population is essential, and whereas California is kicking off its outreach and engagement efforts in April 2019 for the 2020 census, and whereas the City Council of the City of Clearlake, in partnership with other governments, the state, businesses, schools, and community organizations, is committed to robust outreach and communication strategies focusing on reaching the hardest to count individuals. Now therefore it be proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Clearlake to encourage recognition of the importance of the 2020 U.S. Census and support a complete, fair, and accurate account of all Californians. Dated this 11th day of April 2019, signed by me.
I represent the city of Clearlake on the County Complete Count Committee, and this month is the kickoff of the census beginning next year. They will send out the census information. However, it's important to note that Clearlake is considered one of the lowest responding communities, not only in Lake County, but in the state of California, which means that we can lose vital funding that comes directly to the city of Clear Lake. So another important note is they do not send the census questionnaires to P.O. boxes. So it's important to speak with a complete count enumerator when they come to your door. They will come to your door to follow up with the physical address. When they send out the census, they'll send it to your physical address. When you don't respond because you don't get it at your physical address, most of us have P.O. boxes. They will follow up with the person coming to your door. It's important to answer your door and answer their questions so that we can get that important funding from the federal government. So this proclamation is to raise awareness because we're kicking off. There are some events around the lake happening this month just to promote awareness and to promote the return when it comes around next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, can I speak here for a moment on that? They give me a call, and they're actually taking applications online now. The census is actually taking applications online now, and they'll start doing interviews in August. So, for numerators. So the pay is between $16.50 and $18.50, which is not bad for this, and it's kind of a fun job. I did that back in 2000, and it really was a kind of an interesting job. You get to meet a lot of nice people. So if you're interested in doing that, go online and sign up now.
Chief White, I think our new hire's here.
All right, good evening again. I have the opportunity now to introduce Daniel Constancio. Daniel was born and raised in Sacramento, California. He graduated from Roseville High School and moved to Clear Lake last June to be closer to his son. He enjoys playing and watching sports along with riding motorcycles. His long-term goal is to become a police officer with the Clear Lake Police Departments. Both of his parents are first responders, and he looks forward to making them proud and following in their footsteps. I'd also point out that he's being sworn in tonight as a community service officer, which is a relatively new position to the city, but is part of the overall succession planning program within the city. You may recall not too long ago we swore in Officer Shores, who's doing excellent. And in fact, today, the reason why he was late is Officer Shores was showing him about transporting prisoners to the county jail. So it's nice to see that the program is working as everybody hoped. So at this time, I'll administer the oath of office, and we'll call forward your mom. Is there? Yeah. Come. It's not really fair because it's a brand new shirt. Hours old. Good job.
Daniel Constancio,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
that
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
which upon I am about to enter.
Congratulations.
Okay, we're going to take a short, about 5-minute break while we take care of some stuff, and then we'll be back for the next presentation. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll tell you about that. Yeah, I heard about that. We were talking about it earlier. But I tackled the guy. Yeah, that's what I heard. Well, yeah, you're supposed to stop doing that stuff now. You're going to stay away from it. As much as you want to utilize something. You got it, because I beat myself like more. That's how it goes.
All of our neighbors is quiet out there. We love it. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. How are you? I think I know you. Emily? Cool. He's like, I want to go.
Yes. JC was supposed to, but she said no. Put you in the back.
Congratulations, you got out of that crap. I'm not going to see you going down lakes or as I'm sitting playing my gift.
Yeah, you still might.
Everything. You got that white car.
Yeah.
There's no way too much people. Oh yeah, they live in the Browns.
Look at the baby. Oh, look at you.
That's the spot, huh?
That's exactly what happened, and that you blamed it on me. You gotta stand by her. Nick,
Come here,
get behind
son.
Pop.
Son, come here.
You wanna tuck it in, or you wanna take it out? No, take it out. Yeah, that one on this one there. I'm gonna put it under your collar.
They have to get started with their
Yeah, you got 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Well, I already did that. I go.
I don't know how to smile. You got it? All right. We got the chief. Yep. Hey, Chief. Chief. Oh,
It's your oldest daughter.
Cool, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna stay. Love you guys.
Stan, do you want us to get you something? The kids are screaming for dinner.
Spot.
I guess we're going to a spot.
All right, yeah. Chuck, you know they were saying that before.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order. It is 6:47 PM. Next up is a presentation of the Clearlake Police Department Annual Report. Chief White.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and the public. I'm pleased to come before you tonight to provide you information regarding our accomplishments and challenges during the 2018 year. So before we get too far in, I think it's important that we remember what our mission is that's memorialized for the police department, which is to enhance public safety by providing professional, trustworthy service in partnership with the community. This mission is really what guides everything that we do, and it's something that we've incorporated into our hiring process. So when we interview new people, we talk about how they will be able to come to our agency and which component of this mission that they'll really be able to make a difference in. And when we're looking at multiple candidates, what differentiates one from being able to better help us achieve this mission and fulfill the mission. So 2018 has been a busy year for a variety of different reasons. Beginning with the level of activity, which we're going to go into in a bit. But it was a very busy year. We also provided mutual aid for multiple fires that occurred during the summer, which is something that we were able to actually leverage our experience with and help the city of Lakeport. And then also to do our own response when we thought that the city would be threatened, including leveraging planning that had been done previously. So we were able to take advantage of that so that we could produce a plan in short order and make sure that everybody was safe. We've been able to provide throughout the last year a lot of updates on what's happening, so I'm not going to go through every single thing that we've accomplished, but some of the top areas, recruitment and retention has been a primary focus. We simply can't fulfill our mission without having the people, both recruiting new people in to fill vacant and additionally created positions, but also to retaining our positions. We've been very successful in adding new employees to the organization. We've also been able to promote employees, including numerous cases of employees from positions that were created with the idea that they would help us fill a need in the immediate time, but also to prepare somebody to step into a position with more responsibilities, such as transition from kennel technician to animal control officer, which just happened recently, a CSO into a police officer position, and so forth. Our facility and vehicles, obviously we've done massive changes within there. We have a new fleet of vehicles, which you can see out front now, is all coming to fruition. Unfortunately, that process takes a lot longer than any of us would have liked. But the facility is arguably almost like a brand new place. But we're able to do it cost effectively and also to leverage the investment that our employees make in getting stuff done internally that we may not have otherwise been able to afford. We've also made significant investments in new technology. In the animal control arena, we've completely automated the whole management process for animal control with implementing new systems, increasing accessibility to the public to find all of our adoptable animals as well as lost animals that we found. We've also added online licensing functionality, which previously the only way to do it was sending it in via the mail or in person. We've implemented new systems within the police department to make things more efficient, such as our scheduling program, where officers can find shifts to sign up for and ensure that we have adequate coverage for the city 24 hours a day. We've also added other new stuff that's hasn't been fully implemented yet, such as the PSAP system, so that's still underway, but a lot of the legwork was done during 2018. Within enhancing the technology. We also implemented a new system that supported all the computers inside the police vehicles, and we added computers to the animal control officers' vehicles so they could have real-time access to all the information necessary to do their job out in the field. We've also been focused on service delivery, so that's looking at all of our policies, procedures, how we deal with things, listening to what the community has to say and all the other stakeholders within the community about how we do things. We've streamlined certain processes, cut some things out that are unnecessary or otherwise delayed providing the best level of service. And we've started making investments in terms of training across all of our staff, or increasing that investment, I should say. Another big component is the community engagement. So we've made an effort to continue, which is something that's been going on really for the last few years, and all the conversation I've had with the community in terms of the police department getting out and engaging. But more specifically, in 2018, we participated in numerous community events. We also increased our presence online to the point now through social media. We have certain posts that easily exceed 30,000 people viewing it. So we're reaching a lot of people and telling them about what great things are happening here in Clearlake and what we're up to. So you're probably all waiting to hear about the numbers, I would assume. So last year we had an overall 8% increase in incidents coming into the police department. For those that like the raw numbers, that's an increase of 2,300. We had a 25% increase in officer-initiated activity. When I talked about service delivery, one of the things when I came in as chief that I wanted to focus on was our officer-initiated activity. That's really the bread and butter of police work. If you have proper staffing, then you can send officers out there and have them initiate activity and hopefully prevent criminal activity before it occurs, or to stop it when it's occurring, versus the alternative is just to be reactive all the time and respond and take reports and move on to the next report. So 25% increase in there, which is very significant. 2,485 more incidents than the prior year of officer-initiated activity. Arrests had a 35% increase, 692 more arrests. That was another area that I think is a natural result of increased officer-initiated activity. I would say, too, I mentioned about that this isn't all good news. One of the challenges is it was recently announced that Lake County had the highest per capita arrest rate in the state of California. I think amongst other reasons, a big driver for that are the rates of arresting the same person over and over again for activity. I think we've all seen that occur. We've shared the challenges that we have with that. And that's not something that we're going to be able to solve ourselves. It's going to take a community effort, legislative effort, et cetera. So we continue to work on that. We had a 22% increase in reports, so 748 more reports over the prior year, which ties in probably to the increased officer activity as well as the increase in incidents. Traffic enforcement actions were up 21%. We made a deliberate effort in the month of September actually focusing specifically on traffic. We increased our activity there, 580 more, and then we had a decrease of 12% in injury collisions, which traffic enforcement directly makes an impact on injury collisions. Another area with the service delivery that we focused on is providing directed enforcement activities. So we've done twice now focusing on the parks as well as the shopping areas to address city ordinance violations and other things that would deter law-abiding citizens from feeling comfortable with going and shopping within those areas. Okay, so the big piece, violent crime, Part 1 crime index is down 16%, and property crime is down 14%. As a chief of police and as somebody who's been in an administrative role, we're happy with single-digit numbers, double-digit numbers in a city that's disproportionately affected by crime, especially violent crime, and Part 1 property crime. This is a massive accomplishment. This is, I think, directly attributable to a number of different things. One of them being is a partnership with the community. We get a lot of people who, when incidents happen, one comes to mind where it was an incident that we made an arrest and we likely wouldn't have been able to make the second arrest, but for it not, somebody in the community coming forward, sharing with us information and helping us solve that. So people calling, telling us about stuff, sharing information, working together. Our directed patrol efforts, I think, also make an impact in this area that word gets out pretty quickly. I think you can go around and ask anybody out and about, and they'll tell you that they're aware of changes that occur within the police department and efforts that we're out making. Seeing more police officers on the street is also important. So I think those are some of the drivers for it. Crime on the national spectrum, the last that I seen was on a decline, so this is consistent with that. However, California, the last mid-year update that I saw was actually on the increase overall. So I think it's important that we continue to watch this area. I would say, too, that these categories don't account for every crime that we deal with, but they're the most significant crimes that we deal with. And so this is really good news, I think, for the city. We also were able to recognize some outstanding employees. We did this during our annual meeting that we had, I believe it was two weeks ago now. Officer Mark Harden was recognized as the Police Officer of the Year. Nikki Burrell was recognized as a non-sworn Employee of the Year. Richard Moore, known to some as his nickname of Casper, was Volunteer of the Year. We're also able to award the life-saving medal to Officer Hobb and Eagle for their work in what unfortunately was a triple homicide, murder-suicide that occurred this summer, but they were able to save the life of one of the children that had been shot, and so they were awarded the life-saving medal. We awarded Officer Peralt and Kelleher with recognition for productivity, and then we recognized our 3 top overtime workers. One of the things that's really allowed the department to survive through very challenging staffing situations is a willingness of individuals to step up and work those extra shifts. So we were able to recognize them. So going forward, our focus, and as I explained during the annual report, some places come out every year and say, well, this year we're going to do X, Y, and Z, and next year we're going to do that. Obviously, when it comes to budget time, we'll have some specific identification, but our goal really for the next 3 years is focusing on these 4 areas. Our personnel, so recruiting and retention continues to be a top priority. We can't do anything else if we don't have people to go out there and do the work. We also need to continue to invest in our people. Training remains critical to our staff. There's changes that are happening in state law that affect liability for municipal organizations. And we're seeing changes in the federal courts with regards to lawsuits for police activities and so forth. So it's really critical that we invest in our personnel and provide the training so that they can make that right decision at 2 o'clock in the morning when nobody's around, a decision that could, in the negative, could result in very drastic circumstances for the city. We also need to invest in our personnel for leadership training to ensure that they're prepared for succession planning. Things always change, and people need to be prepared to step up. And that also, too, is an area where we get our employees to have ownership in the problems. And that's one of the other reasons I would say is a driver for the positive efforts. The department's been having year-over-year crime reduction is really that the employees caring about the community. And I know sometimes to some of the users of our services, sometimes they think that, oh, the police officer doesn't care because they didn't do X, Y, or Z. The reality is that they do care. It's just that they have limited resources and limited time, but they truly care about the community that they're in. They could easily go somewhere else and make massive amounts of more money for doing a lot less work. The second part is engagement. So I think that from my experience within law enforcement, I think the research has shown that community engagement is absolutely critical. We have to tell our story. We have to tell the community about what we do, why we do it, and also, too, it's an opportunity for us to listen back to what we're doing well on, what areas we need to improve on. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. When we make mistakes, we need to hear about it. As I told people when I first came here, when I met with every single employee and volunteer within the department, I said, we're going to try some things, and some things are going to work well. Some things are going to work even better than we expected, and some things are going to fall flat on their face. But that's all okay as long as we have good, open, and honest communication. Next one is accountability. We have to, our code of ethics requires us to be accountable. Obviously, there's a lot of other things too that require us to be accountable, but we need to watch everything that we're doing. The things that we can measure, we want to measure them to see how we're doing, if we're getting better, if we're getting worse. Being accountable to the public, so if we do make mistakes, that we own up to it, that we conduct fair and impartial investigations, including investigations of our personnel if there's allegations of misconduct. The other part is excellence. So we talked in the annual meeting, and I talked one-on-one with people, particularly in the hiring process, is that, delivering standard service is okay, but we really want people that are going to reach to the next level, that are going to strive for excellence. And I see my job and my expectation of the command staff is that we do everything we can to support the frontline officers in pursuing and achieving excellence. We need to give them the tools, the training, the support, and the accountability so that they can do that. Because in the end, we're public servants, and the public's expecting us to be excellent at what we do, or to strive to be excellent at what we do. I shared this quote. It says, each one of us can make a difference. Together we can make a change. I believe, and I shared with the staff at the meeting, that right now is really a unique time, I think, in the county, that the city's done a lot of different things to the positive, and we are continuing to move forward in a positive direction. And what I share with the staff is that from the police department's perspective, I really believe this. I think that together, the numbers show it, the stories that we hear from the community, that they really are making a change in the community. I tell people a lot of the challenges that we're up against, particularly in the code enforcement area, are things that took decades to create. It's not going to unwind overnight, but staff is working diligently at making an impact. And again, I think it's as a team, and the team isn't just within us, but it's with the community and everybody else. These problems that we face, it's not a police department problem that there's something going on in the computer or in a neighborhood or something like that. It's our problem. It's the community's problem. So we have to come together. And of course, we're on the front lines in areas of law enforcement. But when we see issues, we've got to come together. We aren't sitting and holding all the solutions and just waiting for somebody to open the door. The solutions exist with all of us working together. So division goals going forth, operations are looking obviously continued crime reduction, engaging in the community, training and development of staff. We just did active shooter training. As part of working within the county to do stuff. We continue to send people to outside training, and also to develop our internal training. We're getting ready to roll out simunition-based training, which we call force-on-force training, so officers can be faced with decision-making using guns that don't shoot real bullets, and decide about how to de-escalate situations so that perhaps they don't even need to use a gun. And I'd mention, too, that one of the things that I noticed during my time of I guess I'd say about half of 2018, is that we are all very lucky at the ability that our officers have to talk to people, because they go to so many situations that could end up resulting in a shooting-based situation. And thank goodness, they've been able to resolve those situations within that. And I think that's a tribute to their ability to talk to people. Especially the types of calls they go to. One the other day was somebody who wanted to commit suicide by cop, which I've been to a situation that resulted in the person, in fact, having that outcome, and it's something I'll remember forever. These officers went to that, handled themselves professionally, didn't overreact. At the end of the thing, they were holding the guy as they walk him to the car to try to make him feel better, and actually got the guy to laugh over something, which in his case, it just goes to show that they care about the community, they care about the people. Support services, we had a divisional or organizational change, and I don't get a lot of time to talk about it within this, but we moved animal care and control, code enforcement, SROs, or the SRO into the support services unit, and we have a new Lieutenant Hobbs, who's right over there. This is really part of the city's focus. I know it was approved in this year's budget. It took us a while to get it into place, but to provide much needed attention to these areas, particularly animal care and control. We have a lot of work to be done in there with the facility. We actually just met, in fact, earlier with the city engineer to help us with actually drawing up the site plans for the modular-based kennels. It looks like it's going to be our best option. Our Explorer program, we continue to invest in that. We need to have programs for our youth to be involved with the police department. Whether they choose to become cops or not later on isn't really the point, but it's about being part of the many programs that this community has to offer. And then, of course, managing our fleet. And then code enforcement, we're doing all kinds of things in code enforcement. I could sit here all night and tell you about it, but there's good things that are happening within there. Records and communications, which is an entirely new division. Used to that was underneath support services. We are implementing become a state-funded PSAP, public safety answering point. So our goals this year, once it's installed, they're coming to put in some equipment next week, is that we meet all the state 911 PSAP standards. We are stepping up to a new level of scrutiny, but I think ties directly in with accountability and excellence. They want to provide high-quality service and then consistency in our service to the community. We've had a lot of turnover in dispatch, so this is an area where it's really important that we make an investment in training the personnel and then providing them feedback and mentoring them. Got to take a breath. Okay, questions?
Go ahead.
Do you have any numbers on code enforcements? How many places you tagged and?
Hold on just a second, I'll pull it up. So I have a bunch of numbers, but cases that they opened, 405 cases. They closed 398. 65 red tags open, 25 that they're able to close. 393 vehicles tagged for abatement. They were able to get compliance from 208. They abated 9 immediately due to, I believe, causing safety hazards. And then the city abated 194 vehicles. It's important to note this is in the absence of the AVA funding for about half the year. They opened 125 marijuana cases, executed 6 warrants at 6 properties, 428 plants, overgrown vegetation cases 173. Total caseload is just over 1,000, and then they participated in a whole slew of different events, including cleanup events, participating at community events, conducting presentations, assisting with warrants, the Cal Recycle demolitions, coffee with the cop, all different kinds of things.
Any comment from the public? Your position down to the volunteers, everybody in between. And commend the chief and his department down to and including the volunteers and everybody in between. He mentioned it's an important aspect of having a successful department when your department has a buy-in to the community. And with that buy-in, they have a dog in the fight, and they want to make their community better for them and those who are around us. I'm very, very proud of our department. Anything further? Anything else, Chief?
No, just to add on to that, I think anything up here that maybe you sit back and go, wow, that's great news. That's great news for all of us because we don't exist without public support, be it tax support, everything else. So this is something we as a community, I think, can be really proud of and say that we're on the right direction. There's a lot of work to be done, but we're on the right direction.
Thank you. Let's go down to public comment. I did have one public comment request, but a note on here, she had to leave at 7 p.m. I don't know if her husband wants to take it over or not. I guess not. We'll invite her back next time and make sure she gets in. Thank you. Anybody else wish to make public comment? Yes, please come forward.
My name's Patty Duke, and I'm a resident property owner. And my concerns, I have a couple concerns. One of them is Old Highway 53 in Lake Shore. You have to stop and wait. Once the light turns green, you have to wait because there's bound to be somebody flying through. And this is the most troublesome one. It's really kind of scary. People that don't live here, if they go ahead and step on the gas, are going to get hit. And then I talked to the planning people that do the streets, already wrote it up, but have seen no changes on the S-curve going to Mendo Mill. That it says 20 miles an hour. I see baby carriers, I see bicyclists, I see pedestrians. And the area, the walkway's not cleared, the white lines disappear, and I've seen people going 40, 45 mile an hour, kind of like it's Parnelli Jones around there. And then Chief White, if there can be an added patrol in the gully, Yarrington Avenue, early in the morning, later in the evening. My dogs keep barking down there, and I've seen an old motor home going down there. I've seen a lot more traffic coming out Pacific. And so my concerns are people living down there, and then it becomes fire season. So it's right in the middle of town, behind the veterans, behind the hotel, and that area. So that's very concerning to me. If you could keep an eye, once in a while, patrol, and see what's going on down there. Because I can only hear it, and my dogs are barking, and they don't bark just to bark. So that's my concerns, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Duke. Anybody else? Public comment? Then we'll close that. We come up to the consent agenda. Is there any changes to the consent agenda?
Yeah, we'd like to pull number 9 for discussion.
Anything further? Go on to business. Oh, hold on. Do we have a
like-
approval for the consent agenda?
I'd like to make the motion to approve the consent agenda 7, 8, 10, and 11.
Second.
Motion in a couple of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Negative. Passed. Let's go on to
Number 9.
business. We
No,
have,
number 9.
Mayor, yeah, we need to
Number
deal
9.
with number 9.
Let's deal with
oh, you want to bring up number 9 now?
Yes, Administrative Services Director Swanson will provide some clarification.
Honorable Mayor and council members, staff is pulling this item for a correction to the salary change. The range stated in the staff report is correct at range 68. However, the amount should be corrected to match the amount listed in the salary schedule in item number 10. And it should read 76, 78, 69 to 933, 3350 per month. The resolution should also be corrected to reflect that corrected amount. Then if the council chooses to adopt the resolution for item number 9, the motion can be made to adopt it as amended by staff with corrections. I can answer any questions you have.
Adopt the changes.
Make a motion to adopt the changes. I'll second that.
Do we need a roll call?
They need to read it, right?
You don't have to read it. It's just as if the motion included as amended by staff. So, okay. Voice vote is fine.
Aye.
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 All opposed? Passed. Going to business. Discussion of gravel road maintenance checklist and construction maintenance guide.
So Public Works Superintendent Baker and our consulting city engineer Schwartz are going to handle this item.
Good evening, council. Good evening, public. This item is basically, it's a discussion item to inform. And the city engineer, public works staff has developed a gravel road maintenance checklist that the crew will go through and address any items before they start grading. The checklist is based off the Federal Highway Administration Gravel Road Construction and Maintenance Guide, and we've provided a checklist and we provided a guide to each of you. Probably answer any questions that you guys would have, any concerns. And that's all I have.
The first item is identification of the subdivision map of whether it's a city right-of-way or, I assume, private road. Is there a list that really says which is public and private? And the second question I have is on the gravel road composition, is whether we're going to use permazine or not. I want to know how successful it was last year.
Could I address the first one? So we do have a list of what roads are public or private. We have some concerns over its accuracy, and so we have gotten a fair amount of information that we didn't previously have from the county surveyor's office. And so Mr. Schwartz has been reviewing that, and we expect, I don't know, relatively soon to have that list updated. And as I understand at this point, there's only some minor corrections that may need to be made, but we're doing a complete review of that list to make sure that we're 100% accurate. And then as far as the permazymes, Mr. Baker can address that. We have talked about how successful that really was this year, and we're looking at maybe taking a different approach this season, and so maybe you want to address that.
We do have permazine left over from last construction season, so yes, we are going to use that. One of the problems we ran into last season was we were mixing dirt with our grindings. And this season, we're going to take a different approach, and we're going to be mixing in a Type 2, Class 2 base, which is a finer material, sand and stone, to mix that with our grindings. And we're thinking with that's going to take away a lot of the washouts and problems that we had after mixing it with the dirt. Dirt doesn't really bind very well. And with the finer material and the sand mixed with our grindings, it's going to be a better bind when we mix it and we add the water, we roll it, compact it, and like I said, we'll use up the leftover Permazyme. We'll see how it does, and if we need to order more, we'll order more, and if we determine that we could continue without the Permazyme, we will.
Okay, thank you.
So, I mean, you know, just to kind of add on, I mean, you can see from the checklist how we've kind of organized it, and we feel like that, you know, most of the stuff that was graded last year, I mean, you know, we had an unusual amount of rain, but, you know, we're starting over again. And we want to be in a situation where we don't have to do that each season. And a lot of that is related to drainage, and so that's why we'll be analyzing and documenting both the surface drainage and subsurface drainage, whether it exists. But that's a key part of this guide, is that the crews are trained and more knowledgeable about how to correctly grade a road and make sure the drainage and cross slope and crowning and all that stuff is adequate, so that we don't have so many washouts and issues. So between the composition of adding gravel and base, potentially Permazymes, and addressing the drainage issues as they come up, our intent is to, you know, each year have more grooming to do rather than reconstruction of the gravel roads.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are other questions, but I did want to add that we plan on coming back on the next council meeting on the 25th with a little bit more of a detailed maintenance plan for both potholing and asphalt road maintenance, as well as gravel road, and kind of the plan for the season, at least the beginning of the season. We plan on updating that throughout, and we'll have some more information and some maps on the public-private road issue as well. So,
have we investigated any other products that would potentially provide a better solution to the Permazyme product? And out of curiosity, I know that I've kind of myself went on a field trip and explored the roads that we did the work on last year, and I guess one real plus is that the material's down. So as far as the grading process, there's a huge step taken out of. It's not, as I've heard claims, that it's back to the way it was. It's not true, because now we have product to work with. But I was thinking if there was a product out there that could act as a bonding agent and act as a potential dust control agent, which would be kind of nice. And I know there are some ecologically friendly products that are derived from tree sap, that sort of thing, like lignin. I don't know if you've seen that product before, but there's a few others that are available. But it'd be interesting to see if there was something that might work better than that before we get in. Obviously, if we have product left over, that would be nice to use up the product we have. But and do you think it's a possibility that we just did not use enough?
I think it was a combination of things. I think it could have been we didn't use enough. I think it could have been the dirt was an issue. The rain, the amount of rain we got, didn't help.
An unprecedented amount of rain, so yeah.
And I agree with you. Some of the areas that they did do last year, and some of them did hold up okay, and some of them did, and they're actually still in pretty good shape. But that's why we're going to go in a little different direction this year, to try to make it future years. It's
Right.
more grooming.
Get a little more longevity out of
Yes.
each run, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate the efforts.
One
I
of the
really do.
problems
Thank
too
you.
is we don't have any information on what we really did. It wasn't documented, you know,
Right.
and so that's one of the other pieces of this, is being able to, you know, take a look and see how it worked out, and then be able to go back and see exactly what we did on that street last year.
Well, adhering to standards, as you've given us this manual, which I think is fantastic to adhere to some standards here that I guess we're going to have kind of a guidebook for that. But I have a feeling that, I mean, we have a considerable amount of dirt roads, obviously, but I have a feeling there's probably a lot of other communities that have a considerable amount of dirt roads as well, and probably deal with that as well. So I'm sure there would be some exploratory stuff there available for us to kind of reach out to other agencies that may have been through the paces already instead of us trying to learn it, you know what I mean, in-house.
I think the city engineer did do a little bit of research on that, and there's not, we didn't find anything like this out there, which is why we developed it in-house. I mean, as far as the checklist and that type of thing, but.
I think more from a product standpoint, yeah. Thank you.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Dave?
Yeah, Mr. Baker, is there any commonality in those streets that grading last year didn't hold up? I mean, do you see the same things? Anything that can lead you to a conclusion why overall there was failure in the streets that, from what you've seen on?
I think a lot that has to do with it, why some of the streets that we did grade didn't hold up again, was one, a lot of the rain, and with the city of Clearlake, what I've seen since I've been here, there's really not very defined drainage. And that is one of the things on our list that we will be addressing on this checklist is before the crew goes out, they are going to be looking at that and addressing that. We're going to be putting in culverts where culverts need to be installed. We're going to be addressing some of the drainage issues on some of those streets up there in the avenues, but all over the city.
Sir, excuse me, you can't close that, sir?
That has to remain open.
You got to open that door back up for us, please? Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
If it's noisy, maybe we can have somebody go out and ask them to hold it down.
But the drainage was, in my opinion, the biggest issue. And I think we're going to address a lot of that as we continue to start the grading season.
I'm very glad to hear you say that.
Thank you.
And one last small question is when do you expect to start with the pothole work? Or are you going right now?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Pothole patching?
The pothole patching. The crew is actually, they have been doing some pothole work. They have done a few with the hot machine, yes. And so far, so good. I think they've held up longer than the cold mix has.
Is that on Mullen, part of it?
Mullen was part of it, and also out on
Lakeshore, you did a bit.
Lakeshore. They did some on Lakeshore as well.
I hear that there's someplace over in Burns Valley.
I heard somewhere on Ramsey or somewhere around there. But then again, I hear all over Clearlake though too. So we're going to be getting them all.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so one of the problems that I've seen, one is it was mentioned that there was no record keeping of what has been done. So what kind of record keeping have we created? Do we have a spreadsheet? Do we have a system that's going to be, a certain system that's being entered in to be kept track of? So what type of how are we keeping track of it now? That's one question.
Well, go ahead.
Actually, what I will be doing is I actually made up a spreadsheet on talking to Alan on what it is that we want and what we're looking for. So I made up a spreadsheet that I'll be keeping track of how much material is used and how many feet the guys get.
What roads have been
What roads have been done,
gravel,
yes.
what rows of potholes.
Like,
you know.
like what the city manager said is next week, actually, we are going to come, or I'm sorry, at the next meeting, we are going to come, we're going to have maps, we're going to have a better plan to show you guys, so you guys know exactly what our plan is from the start. But yes, we will be using a spreadsheet to keep track of what we've done and where we've been.
So is there and I'm just asking this question because I'm not that tech per se, but is there a system that other public works departments use that actually you just enter this stuff, or do we have to create it? So.
There's definitely some systems out there that are set up to handle some of this type of stuff.
That might be, I'm just wondering, is that something that we might want to look into to make sure that we're keeping accurate records? Because this has been a problem since I've been on the council, is the records are not being kept, and nobody knows who did what or when it was done. And so I'd like to see that kind of done. And talking about Burns Valley Road, not his area, but up this area. His area's okay, but I think the school buses come up and down that other road, and there's small potholes right now. We might want to put that on the list so that they can be taken care of fairly easily right now. But with the buses going over them, since it stopped raining, I can see that's going to start really going under on that road where the buses go. So, but thank you very much for the update.
Well, one quick suggestion, that you might want to tie this spreadsheet in with some kind of GIS system so you actually can look on a map and see which one you have graded or which one where you put a culvert in or anything like that. I think you can probably use the county as a base for that. Alan, I think you're kind of an expert in that.
Well, we've recreated some of our GIS system, so we definitely have the ability to do that. We have a little bit of work we need to do to make it an ideal situation, but certainly the spreadsheet that Mike has, we can import that into our roads layer, and then we could sort and delineate our entire roads network based on any of this information. So
thanks.
I live up in the avenues, and talk about the potholes up there. Once the crew came through last year and took care of the bomb craters on my street, the average speed of the vehicles went from about 10 miles an hour to 40 or 50 miles an hour. And it didn't slow down when the rain started and new potholes started. And it's like driving through no man's land again. I would like to see, if possible, that Public Works coordinate with the police department on, do we still have the radar trailer, Chief?
We do. My understanding it's on its last leg.
I know Acting Chief Selly put it on my street and a couple others up there for a while, and it reduced the speeds dramatically. Of course, after a week or two, they were right back up. And I know we don't have the manpower, and you can't write radar citations on the avenues up there, but unfortunately, it's on its last legs. That's a great tool, not only on Lakeshore, Olympic, or Old 53, but up in the avenues or out in the park also to slow them down. I would like to see some form of coordination between Public Works and the police department as far as their traffic unit.
Actually, Mayor, I've already talked to the chief, and he has actually sent out, thank you, Chief, by the way, sending out patrols. And I don't expect him to be there all day, but he does send patrols out there where the crew is working. And from what I've been told by the crew, it actually has made a difference by the patrols making a presence there.
Just throwing this out there as an idea, but would there be any consideration to the idea of, while grading a road, to incorporate speed bumps into the roadway surface, and then investing? Obviously, we'd have to put up a sign that said bump ahead or whatever speed bump, but I do believe if you were to run the numbers and if we were to get longevity out of these roadways, the investment to put in a couple signs would be far cheaper. And I don't know what the criteria there needs to be for that to take place, but if you go to many residential areas throughout the state, you'll find that there is some sort of a speed bump in most residential zones. And I just think that it would be interesting to see what kind of a decrease in speed and a decrease in destruction on a roadway surface we would see out of that. I know for an absolute fact that speed plays an enormous role in the damage of the roadways. I mean, I've seen it for years. I've lived on a ranch for 19 years, and it was always the higher speed traffic that would destroy the road. So I don't know if that's a consideration, if that's something we could do. Obviously, if you're grading the road, at the end of the grading process, it wouldn't be too hard to put in a couple of whoop-de-woos and some signs. But if it made a longevity issue go away, you know, and we started getting, 3-4 years out of a roadway surface as opposed to grading it yearly because of the destruction, is it worth looking at?
If I can add on to that, I brought that up myself for the last 15 years or so, while I was working in the department and here on council. And I've always been told, nope, can't happen, can't do it. And yet I go down to Menlo Park or Redwood City, other areas of the state, and I'll be damned if they don't have speed bumps.
Pretty much any residential zone that you go to in a well-established district will always have speed bumps in the residential
There have to be
areas.
certain things followed.
Sure, signage. Yep.
Guidelines by the state, but, it can be done. I don't care what anybody says, it's done already, so it can be done here. Sorry about that.
Hey, I like your enthusiasm.
And
You
I
took
believe
a whole new
you're
another
right.
level.
I believe it can be done, but I believe you as the council will need to actually vote on that.
Oh, I agree,
And-
but
and-
let's get some staff work.
And
to it.
whatever information we need to collect, so we can, and if you, the council, approve of that, sure, my crew's ready to start putting in some speed bumps.
Yes.
That's what I'm.
Again, that would be up to you. I'm sure that there are standards from the state that we will need to follow. I agree, I'm all for speed bumps. I live on a private road, and I put in speed bumps.
Well, somebody put one on mine last year, and your crew came up and tore it down. Which I don't blame them, because it was done with rocks underneath, dirt going over like this, which would have just, even if the car made it across, it would have tore out the undercarriage. But it can be done. I would love to see some staff work come to us on that for dirt roads in the avenues and wherever, over or out in the park or wherever, even Highlands Harbor. Speed kills. Not only the stuff you put in your arm, but the foot on the accelerator.
We'll look into the parameters of that and bring back some recommendations.
I would appreciate it. I think you kind of got a sense of a consensus up here.
Yeah, I know, I'm a little scared if we don't, so.
Not to be pushy. Anything further? Thank you very much. Very good report. And I did go by Mullen and saw the hot patch up there, and it's a, it just went in this last week, but just by appearances, I think it'll last a bit longer, quite a bit longer. Anything further on this? Any comment from the public on this? I've waited for all this time to say it. Your name is one of my favorite characters in entertainment.
I don't do big roads.
Patty.
Oh, I'm Patty Duke. Patty Duke, okay. I don't do big roads, but I have a private road. And through the years, I've noticed the lay of the land and where the water runs. We're actually built on areas where the water does this. And on the roads that you make, when you see the lay of the land, can you put a larger rock gravel area when you see the area that's going to take the water that way? Can you do that in your road? You have your other material here and your other material here, but then you see where the water's going to come. Can you put a bigger rock there that does, that sharp rocks, 3/4, whatever, that doesn't move real easy, so that the water can come through rather than wash the whole road out? Would that be helpful? And then I find on my private road, where the potholes that I fixed, put rock in there and I put quick drying cement, and that's when it's raining, so it just gets wet. And the rocks don't go anywhere. So it's automatic. I don't have to mix anything. Just put the rocks in, quick dry, let it rain. Or use the water. So that's my thought. I mean, I've been watching where the water is going and the roads.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that's actually one of the things on the list for the crew. They will be looking at the drainage and looking at the natural flow. And to answer your question, I need to actually physically look at the road because every road is different.
And the amount of water coming through it.
And my crew is going to do the best that they can to fix and address all the drainage issues. It's taken a while, like the chief said, it's taken a while for things to become the way they are. And with you guys passing Measure V, it's going to get done. It's not going to happen overnight, but it is going to get done and addressed. Okay.
Any further comment? Bring it back to council, nothing else? Thank you very much. Good report.
Thank you.
That's fine.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passed. Thank you. Next, we have a discussion regarding a letter of intent to purchase the airport property between the city and Village Investment Partners, LP. Mr. Flora.
Yeah, so the council's aware of the former Piercefield Airport, which was owned by the Clearlake Redevelopment Agency, now owned by the city and is known as the airport property. Consists of 8 parcels totaling just over 27 acres. There's an attached map in your packet that shows those properties. So your council is probably also aware that there's been a number of attempts at the long-term plan of the city, which is encouraging a large-scale commercial development in the area. We've had recent discussions with Village Investment Partners, which has an interest in purchasing the property and proceeding with that type of development. They also have an interest in 2 neighboring properties, including the former water park property and then the property on the corner of Highway 53 and Old Highway 53. And all of these properties could be potentially combined into a large-scale project. So at this time, the recommended next step is to execute a letter of intent with Village Investment Partners to purchase the property, and this would provide them a 6-month window to determine interest from retailers or other commercial tenants. And then if that interest exists, the parties would negotiate a purchase and sale contract. So one issue with this hopefully future transaction is the fact that as part of the redevelopment agency dissolution process, the properties were transferred into city ownership. We have a number of other properties out there that are still in the redevelopment agency, the successor agency's name. This is not one of them, but it was transferred with the understanding that it would be utilized for public use. And so the long-range property management plan that was approved by the Department of Finance requires that if the city intends to sell this property to a private developer, that the approval of that agreement must come back to the oversight board. So when there is, I guess, continued interest as a result of the letter of intent, the city would then pursue going back to the oversight board and talking about and hopefully getting the approval for potential sale from them. But in checking with legal counsel, that's not something that we need to do at this point. And the city has the authority to enter into this letter of intent. And so we hope that this partner is successful in attracting retail and or commercial development to the property. And our recommendation is that you authorize me to sign that and let them get started.
Obviously, this is a prime piece of property ready for retail development, and I hope that this group can pull it off. I have some concerns, but let's hope that he can pull it off. This would be a tremendous asset to the community to have additional shopping available to us. So, and would generate sales tax dollars for the city. Excited about it.
I think Mr. Hughes is here, who represents Village Investment Partners. So if you have any questions of them, he may be able to address them.
I have a couple of questions, David.
Well, you move forward.
I couldn't hear.
Oh.
Speak into your mics more. Dave Hughes, and I'd be happy to try to answer your questions.
You, in the letter, you indicate that that there, in order to attract a national recognized home improvement store or other national retail change, is there, my understanding is that neither of those, the two biggest ones, Home Depot and Lowe's, are interested in expanding at this point?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily entirely true.
Okay.
My understanding is Lowe's is pretty much on hold, but we have hopes for others.
Okay, great. I mean, if this...
And we're already working on it, so...
Okay, great.
Even though we don't have the agreement yet. But.
When do you expect to have... We're giving you 180 days, so 6 months. Can you come back quicker with it?
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, obviously, if we went to a Home Depot tomorrow and they said, we're ready, yeah, we're not going to wait 6 months. So the idea is to at least give us that amount of time to determine if there is any interest out there, and if there is, who it is, and if that's an acceptable user. You know, it could be someone smaller than a national chain maybe, but big enough to maybe a regional chain or something could come into play.
Also, the previous project kind of got sidetracked by concerns by the Sierra Club, is my understanding. And I hope that those kind of issues will be resolved prior to, or if that it gets addressed, so there's not a last-minute derailment.
Yeah,
and I would suggest that they will be made aware that in the EIR is probably going to be required.
That's in the plans,
okay.
Which unfortunately will prolong things, but.
Well, the reason I understand it is that the previous thought they could do it without an EIR, and that sidetracked it till today. Then,
unfortunately, I mean, personally, I thought the city's negative declaration was more than adequate, and personally, I think it was the big box syndrome. There are certain people that didn't want to see a big box. You know, we're taking an airport. Kelseyville Lumber changed the general plan designation of land from agricultural to light industrial, changed the zoning, built a bigger building than Lowe's was going to be, all with a negative declaration, and nobody sued them to stop them. So, you know, I thought the approach they used was adequate. Were all the questions answered? Apparently not. I mean, one of the big arguments given was your experts disagree with our experts, and that in and of itself is grounds to require an EIR. The city pursued it with a negative deck, and Sierra Club sued. So I said, well, that's going to cost us about 20 years, and it's been 10. So anyway, well, the plan is to do an EIR. So.
Joyce?
I kind of want to clarify what that happened there. It wasn't so much that it was just a negative declaration. It was who did the negative declaration and what was said at every council meeting for a year. And that's the reason why it was an illegal declaration. So it wasn't necessarily they couldn't do it. It was the process that they did, how they did it.
Well,
so that was the problem with the negative declaration. It wasn't that they couldn't have done it. It was just the process that went through. So, but I think the argument's going to be that it needs an environmental study.
Well, and that was the big argument. Everybody said it should be an EIR. There should be an EIR, and the city continued with the negative deck. So.
And I agree. I mean, it was a disappointment that that all happened, but, you know, we just want to be careful and make sure that this time it goes through. So, because we'd like to see that property done in the next 20 years.
Wow,
So-
next 10.
Yeah.
Or 5. So. Bill?
You know, I'm extraordinarily supportive of the efforts being made at the airport property. Obviously, it makes an enormous impact on our community. Things like the economic development that we've seen over the last year are having a significant impact on the services we provide here as a city. And obviously, things like this are not only going to continue to help provide services to our constituents, but it's also going to provide resources for people that live in this area potentially to actually maybe do the home improvement they've been waiting to do. So, you know, all these things that we talk about we have issues with as a community are multifaceted issues, and a lot of them can be solved by things as simple as bringing the right things to our community. And I appreciate the efforts that are being made to accomplish that.
Thank you.
And I'll build on Phil's comments. In addition to bringing resources for people to buy things locally rather than having to go over the hill, it's also going to bring jobs. It's going to bring revenue that will help us to do other things within this city. Hopefully, it'll entice developers to build houses for those folks that are going to be employed in this city. So I think this project we should be wholeheartedly behind. And I think you understand and the developers understand there'll probably be an EIR need that'll need to be completed. I don't think we need to beat it to death. You're going to do what's got to be done. So get her done.
Get her done.
I would have a question. Last year, former city manager Folsom went to some meeting. Where was that? In Vegas?
ICSC?
Yeah. Did we ever receive any interest from the contacts he made down there? Do you know? Okay. Okay. Now maybe we have the possibility of have something.
John
We may end up.
John Glickbarg of Village just went to one in Monterey, and he goes to all of them.
Excellent, excellent.
To find those retailers that we're looking for.
Okay, anything further? Thank you very much.
Extremely high expectations of this, Dave.
Pardon me?
I have extremely high expectations.
No pressure, though.
No pressure.
Any other comment from the public? Yes. Oh, we have two, okay.
Yeah, Chuck Leonard City, Clearlake. To clarify some misinformation that's being given out, the EIR was not the problem with that. The negative deck that was done was bigger than most EIRs. It covered everything. Sierra's Club, big thing was, and they've said this all the time, if they put that in, it's going to destroy the downtown area of Clearlake, whatever that is. And in the book they put out was a bunch of empty buildings and stuff, and they said this is what it's going to look like if we put that in. Well, the buildings were already empty. None of it made any sense, yes. And I'm surprised, Joyce, you're not speaking out against this. You never did want the shopping center to be there, so.
Well, that's not true at all.
Yeah, it's
It was
just.
the process.
No,
was the
no,
process
you ought
that
to tell the
happened.
truth. Stick to the truth.
Yeah, I am
Like,
sticking
it'll
to the
let you
truth. Go
free.
back and look at the meetings. So.
My comment, Patty Duke, is we need 31 flavors. We need the ice cream place, okay? We need something that's going to actually bring people here that are living around the lake. A Barnes & Noble, and they have gifts. And I noticed when we have Christmas, the shelves are wiped in Walmart and Rite Aid. We don't have much area to shop here. So it's totaled. And Barnes & Noble's in Chico is thriving. So it also has a Starbucks in there. But they got a kids center. I mean, it's like going to Disneyland. When I used to take my kids there, it was like Disneyland. So we don't have that here. And if we had a Barnes & Noble in your shopping center, okay, we need people from Lakeport coming over here. We need people from Lucerne. We need the people coming here, too, okay? So 31 flavors, kids, Barnes and Noble kids area, and I really enjoy the bookstore. I mean, just the way they have it set up, so talk to Barnes and Noble. And 31 Flavors, bring them here. That's it.
She had me at 31 flavors.
I'm all for 31 flavors.
We're all in on
Any
that.
further comment? I'll bring it back to
Maybe
council
Cold Stone, but that's me, you know.
for action.
I'd like to make the motion to authorize the city manager to sign the proposed letter of intent with Village Investment Partnership LP to purchase the airport property.
I'd like
I'll
to second. Oh.
Yeah, I agree, John Allen.
Again, a motion and 2 good seconds.
Can I have my third?
Oh, sure, we'll add a third.
Strongly vote yes.
We don't need a roll call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. City manager will get on that, and Dave will be watching. Okay, thank you very much.
Look forward to seeing the construction beginning in a few months. Right on.
Our last item, adoption of ordinance amending the Clearlake Municipal Code relating to abandoned vehicles. Mr. Flora.
Chief White. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council, and community members. California Vehicle Code 22660 provides a basis for removing abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, and inoperative vehicles. A long time ago, the Clear Lake City Council adopted an ordinance pursuant to that authority, and it's been moved around. Most recently, it was moved to Chapter 10, and it exists in Section 10-6. As you're familiar with the Abandoned Vehicle Abatement Authority, this is the legal basis by which we remove vehicles and seek reimbursement through the AVA. Long time ago in 1988, when according to my research, the average price of a car was around $10,000. According to the internet, that's what it says anyways. Assembly Bill 2915 removed the limitation that existed in the vehicle code. Specifically, when they first enacted this section, it restricted removal of vehicles on public and private property, but excluded highways, which by definition includes streets. That Assembly Bill that was passed in 1988, our city code was never updated to reflect that change. So we're asking to amend the code to remove the highways limitation consistent with that change. We're also adding 2 prohibitive sections. One of them would make it clear that it's unlawful for any person to abandon, store, leave, or permit the abandonment, storing, or leaving of any licensed or unlicensed vehicle or parts thereof, which is in a specified condition upon private property or public property, including highways, within the city for a period in excess of 72 or more consecutive hours. The proposed ordinance would also add a second prohibitive section, which would make it unlawful for a person to fail or refuse to remove an abandoned vehicle when they've been ordered to do so in accordance with the CMC. Currently, right now, if somebody was tagged, except in certain circumstances, the real consequence would be is that the vehicle's removed, but there's not necessarily another violation of the law, so this would hopefully seek to add a consequence and deter people from doing so. It goes without saying, abandoned vehicles are public nuisances that reduce the value of properties, promote blight and deterioration, and create hazards, amongst other negative impacts. In this case, we have so many throughout the city that the police department and staff opinion is that it's important to leverage all legal authority that we have and to have strict regulations regarding the creation and maintenance of these nuisances. There'd be no cost for this item to the city. The adoption of the ordinance supports several council adopted goals. And if we could unblink the screen. So these are probably more extreme examples, but these are probably what you've seen driving around throughout the city that parked on streets, in driveways, yards, and so forth. So these are the types of things that we're after to remove off the streets. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead. Does it include boats and RVs?
It would include RVs. It doesn't include boats. The 22660 is specific to vehicles, which are things that have to be propelled on a highway.
I guess a boat wouldn't be that way.
It sounds, obviously this is absolutely necessary to get these off of our streets, but what is our funding source other than the AVA funds?
So AVA funds are the primary source, but for example, this last year when the AVA hasn't been in place, we've been using city general fund that was allocated for abatements. So we'll continue to balance out what we have. I think too that in this case, as I mentioned before, the consequence was, you know, if we tagged it, and even if we knew who the owner was and so forth, really we'd either have to come up with the money to remove it and somehow try to recover it from them. But in this case, we can issue citations, such as if it's parked on somebody's driveway, like there's one up the street that's sitting in a driveway, no windows, everything's stripped off their car, but they store it there, they could receive citations that would attach to the person. And through our administrative citation process, we'd be able to recover that. If we had somebody who is, like for example, we've been dealing in the last few weeks with individuals who are picking up cars and dumping them throughout the city, that we could also pursue misdemeanor charges if necessary. So admin would be the primary, but we'd also reserve to pursue misdemeanor.
So additional tools would be applied, and then it would also give you more avenues for recuperating funds.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Public comment?
Payment for that?
You have to go to the, Patty, you have to go to the mic, hon.
Patty Duke here again. Do you get money for the scrap metal? Is there any reimbursement when you get these things?
No, through the AVA program, we can recover funding when that's operational, but no, we don't make any money off of scrapping them.
Okay.
Anything further? I'll bring it back to council for action.
I want to introduce, motion to introduce the first reading of ordinance number 228-2019, an ordinance amending chapter 10, section 10-6 of the Clearlake Municipal Code relating to abandoned, wrecked, dismantled, and inoperative vehicles, including the abatement thereof. Read by title only, the second reading for the April 25th, 2019 meeting.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and 1 second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carried. Okay. Takes care of our general business. Reports. Mr. Flora.
So I have just a few items to cover. First of all, I'd like to introduce Jill Martin, the city's new finance director. Experienced in both Lake and Mendocino County. She started this week, so very fortunate to have her on board, and looking forward to working with her again on preparing this year's budget. Also like to introduce George Grigsby. Maybe George could stand up. George is an intern who's been helping out the city from Pacific Union College. He's working on a number of projects right now, focusing on analyzing our latest Lake County Health Statistics report, and working on some potential recommendations on what we can do to improve those statistics in the future. So Public Works has been one of my hats lately. We're having twice weekly meetings with staff to make sure everything is kept on track, including our city engineer, who just left. And I just wanted to point out that both Mr. Schwartz and his engineer in training, Marissa Hewitt, who's been helping him, have been just an enormous benefit to what we're doing. I don't know how we'd be getting through this time without him. He's very resourceful. They've been taking time doing things that we didn't tell them to and we wouldn't expect them to do, like organizing the Public Works files on the drive. In fact, in spending a few hours each week in doing that, they have found complete design plans for drainage and sidewalks for Lakeshore Boulevard that we had no idea existed, and probably cost the city $200,000 to $300,000 to develop. And so a number of things like this we're excited about being able to have our hands on, and knowing they actually exist. It's going to save the city a lot of money. So I did want to point out that we did have some struggles last week. The Burns Valley Civic Center project that was awarded by the council at the last meeting. This was partially funded by SB1 through the city's, because we're a self-help city. It's a special program, not the normal funding source, but those of us who have local funding specific for transportation are eligible for additional funds. There's a set of requirements that's unique to this program that a number of state agencies weren't even clear on. And so when we were ready to move forward, we found out that there's a number of additional steps that are required in order to have state approval to move forward with the project, including having sign off from the state architect's office on the handicap ramps that are part of the project. We found out that that office wasn't even informed by Caltrans that this was a requirement of the project or any of the other projects. So we really stepped it up, and staff put in a number of extra hours to make sure this project also has to go back to the CTC for final approval. We were able to work with them. They were very helpful. That project now is on the May agenda. And Mr. Schwartz is taking the plans to the state architect's office next week to walk them through the approval process. And we believe the project will still be on track, but we were very close to having it derailed for the year. The Lake County EDC is working on a video marketing project for available development properties within the city of Clear Lake and the county, so I'm excited about the potential for that, and we'll keep you posted as that continues. April 27th is a Clear Lake Cleanup Day. I think maybe Mr. Baker could give us an update on all the areas of the city that we'll be focused on during that. Do you have that off the top of your head, Mike?
As the city manager said, April 27th is the cleanup day, and there's going to be different areas throughout the city, but the main focus is going to be Lakeshore, Old 53, and Olympic. And we'll be picking up trash with the residents and CC4C. CNS Waste is providing us with dumpsters. Public Works is going to be out there with equipment, and we're going to have drop-off points. Basically, they'll be picking up the trash, put the trash bags. Either Public Works or CNS Waste will go through and pick up the bags and the trash at those drop-off points. There's going to be some other spots throughout the city. And that's about it. Come on out and give us a hand.
Well, now 8 o'clock.
Yes, 8 o'clock.
April 27th across from City Hall.
Followed by hot dogs, as I understand.
Yes, yes. Last year, though, our hot dogs got blown away by the wind. It's crazy.
So a couple of events on May 5th coming up. One is going to be the circus. Tickets are available here at City Hall and a number of businesses throughout the city and the county. The circus is going to be right across from City Hall over here along the lake. Also, there's going to be a spay-neuter clinic at the Senior Community Center. So Jameson Animal Rescue from Napa County has 400 vouchers for free spay and neuters. So hopefully the community takes advantage of that.
That'll be May 5th also?
May 5th also, yes. So I got an update at a meeting I was at earlier. Maybe some of you have heard this at this point, but as part of PG&E's wildfire plan for this upcoming fire season, they have hired a number of firefighters and have PG&E fire engines that they're going to be stationing around the area. One of those will be located in the city of Clear Lake at PG&E's yard. Will be staffed 24/7 with 2 firefighters. Their primary goal during the season is going to be to protect PG&E infrastructure, but they will be out there. I've also invited Mr. Hernandez, our representative, to come to the May 23rd council meeting and give us an update on the Public Safety Power Shutdown Program that really, for the most part, shouldn't largely impact the city of Clear Lake, but it did last summer when they did shut things down, even though it really wasn't supposed to. So we've asked him a number of questions about how they've resolved some of those issues, and so they'll be coming to the council to provide an update on that on May 23rd. And so the last thing that I wanted to provide an update on is I was able to get a few pictures from code enforcement. They finished the 9 demos of properties around the city this week. So they have a few pictures here before and after. This is Snook. think I put these in here during the break, so I think maybe the after picture didn't come out right. But as you can tell, dramatic improvement on these properties. And I believe there are some remaining funds, so now that these are complete, we'll be able to go back to Cal Recycle and request approval from them to allocate those for hopefully at least one additional highly visible property within the city on Lake Shore. So
Is that one on Arrowhead, is it down, gone?
all of them are down.
Okay,
Yeah,
That's been for an eyesore for how many years now? Nightmare. Thank you.
so big thanks to, in particular, Lieutenant Hobbs and Code Enforcement in taking care of business on those. And that's my report.
Well, let's see, he pretty much said everything, so it's like, but the circus tickets, aren't they also available at the chamber?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, okay, because I wasn't sure, so, so basically you said everything, so I really don't have anything to report right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say that the one between Emory and Lakeshore Drive, which is probably the one that's on the forefront, I'm going to guess, is really visible and has been a huge mecca for problems in that area. So yeah, that would be really nice to see that go. I am really super happy about this. You know, I've mentioned this many times, but I've been here in the city of Clearlake my entire life, and it's interesting to finally start seeing some of these blighted properties that really shape the landscape of our city going away. That's extremely exciting for me to see that happen, because what it does is it creates, well, we all know, it creates a renewal or revitalization of our city, and it makes people think differently about our city, the people that live here and the people that come here. And I just think that the future is that much brighter every time we eliminate one of those blighted structures. The only real thing that I participated in is I went to the National Riflemen's Association dinner, and at the NRA dinner, the youth center was awarded a grant in the amount of $20,700 and something for the construction of a archery and air rifle. Basically, it's an educational facility for children. So the efforts at our youth center are just unparalleled. What's happening right now, these guys are putting in continuous effort, writing grants, applications regularly, and this one was awarded, and they expect potentially more grant money coming in for a similar or the same project. So they'll be coming to us with their now that they have funding, they'll be coming to us with some sort of a prospect as to how they plan on going about this now. But one of the most common things that I hear is that we have nothing for our children. We have nothing for our children. I hear it all the time, and believe me, I grew up here and I felt it. So I totally understand it. I totally get it. And it's just exciting to me that people aren't just sitting back and complaining about the fact that there's nothing for our children, but they're actually taking the steps necessary to find things for our children to do in this community. And I applaud their efforts. The people that are involved in the youth center are doing an exceptional job at doing that very thing. They're putting the children first, working very diligently for the children in our community. And I just think that we need to do as the city everything we can to help support them in their efforts. We're moving forward in a lot of different ways, and that's just one of them. So really appreciated. So that's it. Thank you.
Yep. I guess I would, no need to go into any further detail. I would agree with what our three fellow councilmen of people have said, with certainly and about the youth center as well. I think that's a great program. As far as what I've done this past week, on Tuesday, I attended Area Planning Council Lake Transit Authority meeting with Mayor Bennett was also there. And then that was pretty much the only real meeting I want to report on, but I do want to give an update on our shower trailer project. We've made the decision to go with the sewer connection, and through the generosity of Golden State Water, who's providing the permit, we don't have that $11,000 expense. So we are going to go ahead, and I've contacted and got an estimate from a local contractor who will do that connection directly to the sewer. Hopefully that'll be done within the I'm hoping next 30 days, maybe 45, but soon, and that'll be followed by he'll also do the pad under which we'll pour the slab that the building will set on. And then the only other thing, like I said, is to go ahead and put the buildings that they'll be purchased as well and put over the top of it. We are going to need additional funds from what we have, so I approached Redwood Health District, and they are going to give a grant, or excuse me, I'm applying for a grant from them for $41,000, which will give LARCA the additional funds that it needs to complete the project. And that meeting will be on April 23rd. If any of you would like to sit in and support that effort, I'd appreciate it. So that's all I have.
That's awesome news. Had a couple of things. Again, the APC meeting we went to. A couple of Fridays ago, I went to the senior center and did a ride-along with Meals on Wheels. Was a young lady, Robin, I rode with. I would encourage every person on this dais to do a ride-along with Meals on Wheels. It is very eye-opening. I worked the streets in this town for years, and I was near tears in some cases. The person who I was riding with knew each one of her clients, delivering the meals to them, knew their history, their background. Some of them weren't able to come out to her vehicles, so she took the food inside, and in most cases I went in with her, or they would meet us outside. It is an eye-opener to another area of this community. I dealt with mainly with crimes on the street. This is an area not dealing with that, but for our needy, and it really impacted me more than I realized is a need for this particular program and the support it needs. I encourage everyone up here to do that right along. And those within the city hierarchy. I think it would be an eye-opening. Yesterday, we went out to Cache Creek Dam. There was the vice mayor, myself, Supervisor Bruno, Sabatier, Chief White, and got a tour of the dam. You know, and I was thinking afterwards, that thing was built in 1913, 1914.
At the time you were born, wasn't it?
About, yeah, a couple of years before I was born. Not to date myself, but I haven't been out there for 55 or 60 years. And when I was a kid, you could just drive out there. You could fish along the channel out there and everything. And go out there, and not that I did, but you go party, you know. In the way that thing is built, it's functioning today, you know. And I was thinking yesterday afterwards, and I'm not going to drag this out, but you see pictures in Cuba of the vehicles from 1950 are still running. Can you imagine if Cuba, that happened in '59, happened today, and they were stuck with the vehicles they have today? Hell, those things wouldn't run more than 2 years. You know? But the workmanship, the pride that went into that, and it's quite an operation. And this gentleman that is from general manager from the Yolo Water. I've heard him speak twice before at Rotary and the Judges Breakfast. If you ever get an opportunity to go to one of his presentations, it's awesome. I did post on my personal Facebook some of the photos that we took out there. Also forgot your bride was there, Joan. And it's an eye-opener to see and how they regulate and what they do and how they figure out ahead of time and everything. Go ahead.
I was just going to interject that
Yeah.
the reason I set this, this tour up was after the last tour that we went on. My bride told me that we've been, well, we'll be married 48 years this year, and I've known her a few years before that. And I've never been out to the dam, and you take all these people out to the dam. So that's why that tour was set up.
It was a great tour. And I think that's all I have. Anything further? We're set for a couple of weeks from now. The meeting will be adjourned at about 20 after 8. Thank you.